All right, we'll go and get started here. It's 6:03. Welcome everybody. My name is Steve Neighbor. I'm the city engineer for the city of Des Moines. I've got a number of team members with me, including Craig Bushka, who is the project engineer for the Levee project. I've also got Mark Land with Snyder and Associates. He is the project manager for the what's actually the Icon now known as the Iowa Confluence Water Trails project, and so we're presenting these together because they actually have been coordinated together. While there are separate construction contracts, there'll be separate construction contracts. We have been working together to coordinate these projects in terms of the staging of when they'll occur and when work will occur. So that's the point of our meeting tonight, is to touch on those two projects and when their schedules and timing, what is actually going to occur. And so here you can see a photo. This is actually levee work that's being done on the first phase of the levee alterations. If you've seen some of the light blue trucks with Corel contracting on them up and down the river, on the Des Moines River north of the confluence, upstream of the confluence, you may have that is actually the first phase of the major phase of the levee alterations project. So this is a photo of that work of the levee project. So some attendee instructions. We're running this meeting, similar to other city meetings in the past. Hopefully, if you're on a computer or smart device, you see a menu bar like this as shown on the bottom of your screen. If you click on the participants icon, that'll give you some tools where you can raise your hand, lower your hand, and that way we can kind of keep the meeting in orderly fashion, and respond to questions and whatnot. So Craig and I are going to give a quick presentation of the staging of the project, and then we'll have a pause at the end for questions and comments. And so if you're on a phone, I'm not seeing anybody on a phone, but if you are on a phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and to mute or unmute yourself, press *6. Otherwise, like I said, if you're on a smart device or computer, you see this participants tab. That should give you the tools to raise your hand, unmute yourself, that sort of thing. We are recording this meeting. That's a big benefit of us doing these meetings virtually. We can record them, and we'll actually post them on our website. So if you have neighbors or friends or family or colleagues that didn't get a chance to attend tonight, they can actually watch this this meeting as it's being recorded. So we're here to talk tonight again about two projects: the Iowa Confluence Water Trails Scott Avenue project, the Scott Avenue portion of the project, the levee alterations phase B and C. So essentially the second and third phases, major phases of the levee alterations project, and then go through the phasing of projects and then ask questions. And again, this is a photo. Hopefully, maybe you recognize this area. This is the entrance to Principal Park, the baseball stadium there. And so there are the berms that you see out in front along 2nd Avenue. These are actually levees, and so those levees have already been improved. This was the grading that was done earlier this summer to raise those levees. And so we are, so that was actually technically phase 1. So again, what is a levee? A levee is a man-made structure, often an earthen embankment, designed to, in accordance with engineering practices, to control, contain, or divert the flow of water, providing reduced flood risk, providing that protection from temporary flooding. Essentially, a levee is a barrier that keeps the floodwaters from flooding adjacent areas that are lower than the levee. And from the purposes of the National Flood Insurance Program, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, they will only recognize on their flood hazard and risk mapping those levee systems that meet and continue to meet design criteria and maintenance criteria that are consistent with their certification and accreditation requirements. So FEMA will accredit a levee as providing adequate risk reduction on their flood insurance rate maps if that certification and the adopted operation and maintenance plans provided by the levee owners are confirmed to be adequate. And the city of Des Moines is the owner of the levees that are downtown. So this does impact insurance and building requirements. Okay, so when we talk about why we're doing these improvements, it's to meet. We need one of them reasons is we need to improve the levees to meet the latest the accreditation and certification requirements of FEMA. And so years ago, I think about in 2011, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did some modeling of the rivers and determined that certain events are more likely to occur more frequently, higher flows, higher intensities. And so that modeling of the rivers is driving the need for improvements to the levee system. And so again, our goal is to make sure the levees provide the necessary flood risk to meet the FEMA accreditation requirements, which in our case, FEMA typically requires the levee to be 3 feet above what is known as the 100-year flood or 1% annual exceedance probability storm, but again, mostly known as the 100-year storm event. So we want to meet those requirements. We've decided to actually design our project to be above that. So we're actually meeting 2 higher criteria. We're going with the FEMA requirement plus 6 inches, or using the U.S. Army Corps has a design requirement for the 100-year 90% conditional non-exceedance elevation, which is it's a probabilistic chance that's based on modeling that the levee will be exceeded. So we're actually designing this project to be above, given some freeboard, above the requirements that we need for FEMA. And so again, what does that mean? And there's a number of cases downtown where our levees are only two feet or so, give or take, above the 100-year flood elevation. Well, FEMA says we need to be 3 feet for the most part, and in some areas next to structures, we need to be 4 feet above. So again, that's where it requires a raise of the levee system. We've also done a number of testing on these levees. We want to ensure that they are geotechnically sound, and so we've taken a number of we call them soil borings or samples to test basically the stability of the levees and model what we call seepage, or there's water that actually groundwater that flows underneath the levees. And so we've done that testing with the levees to see if there are improvements geotechnically that need to be done to the levee system. And so that's kind of I know it's a lot of information, that's the overview, but in general, we've got to improve our levees if we want FEMA to continue to recognize these levees as accredited levees shown as moderate risk on the flood insurance rate maps. If you pull up a flood insurance rate map for these areas, that's what it's showing: moderate risk, protected by levee, as part of the National Flood Insurance Program. So, which again, those impact insurance and building requirements. And again, there's that requirement, and we also want to mitigate and reduce flood risk as well. So how do we do all this? Again, I just threw a lot at you here, but first, let's go to one real quick: the Iowa Confluence Water Trails Scott Avenue project. You may have heard about this in the news. This project does a number of things. One, it's providing an incredible recreational feature in the river, and also it's in modifying the dam by notching the dam, and by also making some improvements just downstream of the dam to control the drop, essentially, so that there's not that vortex, maybe the right word, vortex feature And that's the problem with the dams. If when the water goes over the dam, it creates almost kind of like a rolling effect, kind of like a washing machine type effect, where the water just kind of spins in a vortex manner. And so this will eliminate that hazard, and as well as instead of just the river dropping at the dam, there'll be multiple drops. You can see them on here: drop 1, drop 2, and also create a recreational type course for river users, kayaks and whatnot, and then also even creating improving it for fish habitat, creating a fish passage to go upstream as well. And you can see in the picture in the lower left there, also some improvements along the bank, portage, locations to get into the river and out of the river, as well as some fishing pier locations as well. Here's some of the construction drawings that are being done. Again, we talked about the fish passage, talked about the boat passages and the drops as well. And here's kind of a rendering graphic showing that. The Iowa Confluence Water Trails has created a website, iconwatertrails.com, if you'd like to find out more. So again, that's a quick overview of what the project is. So again, mitigating the dam risk and then also providing the recreational feature. And I talked about all the needs for the flood protection system, the levee system, right? So this is a big project. This map actually shows in color where the downtown levees are. And so you can see there's multiple levees. There's they're on each side of the river. And phase A, so we've broken it out into phases because it's a massive project. Phase A has already been under construction. That's well along the way. That included the Simon Estes Amphitheater. If you're familiar with the Simon Estes Amphitheater, the back walls, that's those seat walls, that is a flood wall actually. And so we've raised those to meet the FEMA standard. And then we've also added, done improvements to what we know as closure improvements, where if you notice, there's walkways between the seat walls, right? Well, to get down to the concerts and Nightfall on the River. And those walkways are openings, right? So we also have openings or closures, what we call at the railroad tracks or at roadway bridges, right? Because the levee's up here, but then we come down to where the road is or where the railroad tracks are. So those are what we call closures. If there was ever a high water event at certain stages, we actually have to come and close those openings. So the areas between the seat walls, we put in notches to create stop logs and close those openings. And that's the case also for roadways. Even the picture I showed you earlier with Principal Park, we'd have to close over the entranceway to the parking lot between the levee opening there. And then we've also done some levee raises. So again, that's shown in green here in phase A. That project's already nearing completion. So we're here tonight to talk about phases B, going up the Raccoon River, and phase C, shown in pink here. Okay, so those are the two phases we're here to talk about tonight. There are future phases going downstream. In fact, all the way down the river and up and around 4 Mile Creek is the levee system. We've got to improve all that because it's all hydraulically connected, right? If we just raise the levees up here downtown, well, then you still would have levees at lower elevations. So if the river came up, it would go up in the backflow, basically upland from the downstream section. So there's our levee phasing. Again, A, nearing completion. B and C, we're here to talk about tonight. We're in the design video. And so this graphic right here, maybe hopefully gives you a little bit more of a picture. This is the top of the levee right here with this berm. So right now in this graphic, you can see this solid line right here. That is the current top of the levee. Okay. FEMA says we need to be 3 feet above the 100-year elevation. That's shown down here in this kind of skip dash line, right? So our levee is currently well above the 100-year elevation today. But again, FEMA says it needs to be 3 feet above in most cases. And when we approach bridges, it needs to be 4 feet above for a certain distance. So here's where we need to be, this dash line. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going above and beyond that with adding some buffer in there. So the gray shaded area is the proposed fill. And so we're raising the levee up, in this case, almost about 2 feet. So if you could visualize this being 2 feet higher, that's what we need to do. Obviously, this impacts the trail. We talked about closures. This would be an opening, right? In the system, you know, there's a gap between this levee here and this levee over here for the trail users to get through. And so that's a closure. So when we talk about closure improvements. So I don't know, Craig, is this a time to transition to you, do you think, or did I miss anything in the kind of the project overview? So.
No, I don't think so. I can kind of take over from here.
Okay.
And as Steve kind of stated here, this is obviously looking to the west from Southwest 5th Street. And the Southwest 5th Street Bridge, are also known as the Jackson Street Bridge. But right here too, it's kind of interesting because you know, we have foot traffic that traverses kind of over the top of the levee, and has created kind of a dirt pathway. Well, that dirt pathway is not a desirable thing. I mean, that would kind of show up on levee inspections as something that the city needs to approve upon. So like at this location, we're to Steve's point, we're going to actually create an opening in the levee and install a floodgate system or swing gate. So basically there'll be a direct, you know, path connection from Southwest 5th Street directly to the Jackson Street Bridge. Also just kind of a neat feature of this, and I'll talk about this just a little bit more here shortly, is you know, this section of the Meredith Trail is on the riverside. Well, with our levee improvements, you know, obviously the trail section ends here at the Southwest 5th Street Bridge, but what we'll be doing is just kind of widening for a future trail connection to the west here. But the trail here right now is currently riverside and will be transitioned up to the top of the levee for a future trail connection. But some of the improvements with the Phase B project include, you know, in Phase B project would be from Southwest 3rd Street upstream to Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, and includes, you know, earthen levee raises, flood wall raises and replacement, bank armoring with riprap, and also gate well modifications, as well as, you know, just kind of abandoning old utility penetrations that create a, you know, a pathway for water to get through, and, you know, potentially provide some, you know, issues with the levees themselves. So with the next slide, it kind of shows, you know, overall, you know, the entire scope of the Phase B project, which we plan to start construction on here in 2022. So it's really kind of broken out into 3 phases. The first phase is from Southwest 3rd Street to Southwest 7th Street, basically on both sides of the river. And this is going to be kind of an impactful phase too, because it involves closure of the Meredith Trail for approximately a 3 to 4 month duration. But this will be the first phase of the project. And when this work happens, like right away, kind of in the spring of 2022, trail users will have to, you know, detour to Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. The nice part about this phase, though, is it is shorter in duration. Then as we, you know, proceed upstream with our work, you know, kind of starting in the summer of 2022, the area shown there in purple, as well as the orange section, will pretty much just exclusively be earthen levee raises and stuff like that. But once again, one of the unique features of this project is from, you know, the Jackson Street Bridge, or Southwest 5th Street Bridge, to the west to the Kristen Marcy Coleman Bridge. We will be widening out the existing levee section to accommodate, you know, a future trail section. So that's a really kind of neat feature of this levee improvement project. And then let's see here. So then work on that, the purple and orange section will basically kind of run then from the summer of 2022 all the way through the summer of 2023. So the next slide there, the Phase C levee alteration project will be more downstream of Southwest 3rd Street to Southeast 14th Street. This section of levee is kind of more of a, it's heavy on the geotechnical modifications because there's a lot of rubble and debris that are kind of within the levee itself. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of geotechnical work kind of done on this portion of the levee, including a seepage relief trench, which I think Steve had kind of mentioned earlier, is something that kind of captures water as it flows, you know, kind of underneath or through the levee section. You know, we'll also be replacing unsuitable materials, as well as doing earthen raises and widening, bank armoring with riprap, and gate wall modifications, and obviously old utility penetrations. So the picture shown here is basically at Southeast 6th Street, looking west toward downtown. And as you look at the cross section view, kind of there at the bottom of the screen, once again, kind of on the east side of the bridge, we're looking at nominally a 2-foot fill, which is somewhat common on phase B and C. But obviously there are sections that are less than that, but there are also sections that are more than that. So on the west side of the bridge, we're going to be basically raising the levee 4 to 6 feet. Now, a lot of the reason behind that is just because we're kind of realigning the levee to create a better trail connection or street crossing, at Southeast 6th Street. Next slide there, please, Steve. And this is also just kind of an overview map of the entire Phase C project shown in blue there. Also inlaid within the project is the Iowa Confluence Water Trails project there too, as Steve's kind of showing on his screen there. And so basically, one of the neat features of this project or this phase C is the John Pat Dorian Trail is really, as many of you already know, is in really kind of rough shape right now. It doesn't have, it's not up to current design standards as well either. So on the north side of the river, we will be kind of also widening this levee section to basically install a new trail, 10-foot wide trail with, safety shoulders and whatnot, and just basically get it up to current design standards. Then with the following slide, we get a little bit more into the phasing of the Water Trails project as well as the Phase C levee improvement project. So with this one, we'll basically right off the bat in 2022, we will be starting to work on the levees from Scott Avenue to Southeast 6th Street. And that work there is not necessarily going to take us very long to do. But once we are complete with that work on the north side, then Central Iowa, or the Water Trails Improvement Project, will then start their in-river and upland work on the north half of the Des Moines River, as shown in green there. And their work, is anticipated to take, just short of a year. So, while we're going to be within the Scott Avenue to Southeast 6th portion of the levee for a 2 to 3 month time duration, obviously they'll be there for an extended period longer than that. As then we work downstream from Southeast 6th to Southeast 14th Street, that work is anticipated to, take about 4 to 5 months. And if the contractor is able to get that work in a timely fashion in 2022, we will allow them to then start working on the south side of the Des Moines River from Southeast 6th Street to Southeast 14th Street. But that's really kind of a time-dependent phase. And if that does happen, where we then kind of start work on the south half of the Des Moines River, all pedestrian or trail traffic will then be diverted to the new John Pat Dorian Trail on the north side of the river. One other interesting feature that we're going to be doing with this phase 2 is from the Pat Crivero Park. We're going to be also grading for a future trail connection underneath Southeast 14th Street to the Harriet Street improvements work that is also happening with the Water Trails project on the east side of Southeast 14th Street as well. So there'll be an additional connection underneath the Southeast 14th Street bridge in the future, a trail section that will be connected there, but we'll be grading that section out now. And then moving along to the next slide, if work within that section of Southeast 6th Street to Southeast 14th Street is not completed in 2022, we will basically then just be working on this entire stretch from Southwest 3rd to Southeast 14th Street in 2023. The biggest piece that we have to get done, and once again, probably one of the more impactful pieces, is from Southwest 3rd to Scott Avenue. That portion of the Levee project is also not anticipated to take very long, approximately 3 months, but that'll be a key piece to kind of get done. So, you know, we maintain kind of a nice trail section, you know, here basically crossing the Scott Avenue Bridge and using the new John Pat Dorian Trail as a detour route. But then we will continue downstream of Scott Avenue on the Levee project through, you know, well, I guess kind of we anticipate completion in fall, I guess, of 2023, whether it's to Southeast 6th Street or Southeast 14th Street, the whole section should be completed then by fall of 2023 with a whole new trail section. While that work is going on, and once the Levee project work is kind of completed at Scott Avenue, or Southwest 1st Street, that's when the Water Trails project will also be in there for an additional 18 months. So through kind of October of 2024, doing their in-river and upland improvements that Steve had briefly touched on earlier in the presentation. With the next slide too, we'll you know, on the city's website, under the engineering department, under projects and studies, we also have a web link for the Des Moines Levee Alterations program. And within that link, we'll be providing construction updates, trail closures, and stuff like that. So it's just another kind of neat little thing to get information out there. With all that being said, I guess, any questions?
And these are photos of the Phase A construction, right? So just to kind of give you an example, when we're talking about earth and embankment levee raises, again, elevating the levee, stripping off the top, kind of the topsoil layer, and then elevating the levee with compacted lifts of clay materials to raise it up to the proper elevation. So stripping it down, then building it back up to the new, more higher elevation. So as Craig mentioned, do we have any that was a lot of information to put at you. Do we have any questions or comments from our folks on the meeting? And if you think of any later too, please don't hesitate. I have Craig's information up here. Contact us. You know. Okay, yep, I see Jim.
So it looks like you're raising the levee a few feet or a couple feet, 3 or 4 feet. I assume that you're going to have to make, I don't know if widen the levee is the right word, or make it more robust side to side.
Yep, that's a good question. Jim is correct. Because we are raising the levee, 3 to 4 feet. When you carry the slopes out, that will also widen the footprint of the levee. And then obviously on Phase B, Craig mentioned, and actually the John Pat Dorian Trail on the north side of the river, that we're actually the trail for the John Pat Dorian, I think, is only like 7 feet wide. So there we would also be widening to accommodate a wider trail and then provide the 2-foot shoulders as well. But yeah, so in general, because of the levee raises, the footprint widens as well. So I think there is some property impacts. So some people who are right along the levee system would have to may have already been contacted by our real estate folks about getting easements or those impacts. Is that anything, Craig? I missed anything there?
No,
For
I
the
think you,
most part, though, go ahead.
no, I said, I was going to say that, Steve, I think you pretty well covered it. We had a fair amount of all the real estate we need. So that really the need on both projects was somewhat minimal.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jim.
So for the most part, then if you're making the levees more robust, I'm thinking like especially between like Scott and East 6th, I mean, you're probably going to do that not on the river channel side, but the land side of the levees in most cases.
Craig, do you remember in that section, and a lot of the cases it is on the land side, but as there are some sections that aren't that case. Craig, do you remember by chance if that was river or?
Yeah, that section of Levee is kind of unique because that's, like I stated earlier, is kind of where a lot of our geotechnical modifications are coming or are going to be done in that area. So really within that section, we're basically doing pretty much an equivalent amount of landside and riverside widening. And basically what we're doing in some cases, we have some issues with seepage or whatever, we're creating a cap or a impermeable layer of dirt kind of more on the riverside of things. So it really kind of depends on where you're at within that section, but that does kind of go a little bit back and forth between a landside and a riverside improvement.
Is this showing the kind of the limits, Craig, right here? See how this kind of flares out right there?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so it looks like you said, between Scott and Southeast 6, it's kind of split. So the widening would kind of occur on both sides, except for right down here. It looks like there is some more riverside on this side. So it looks like it is a lot split through these phases. I think as we go into phases D and Southeast Des Moines, it becomes more landslide than this would be. So, yep, good question.
But a lot of times too, I'll also add on to that too. It is, because of the flow frequency study, has increased our flows and whatnot too. Most of the time, with the exception of kind of this area too, we are generally widening more to the land side because we cannot, inhibit, flow more riverside because of that increased flow frequency that we have.
I think if I recall, usually we're sitting at about a 3-to-1 slope, right? And so, and correct me if I'm wrong. So in other words, if we're raising the levee, say 2 feet, that toe of the levee, the bottom of the levee here, see this the toe here, would be going out another 6 feet than it is today. So,
correct.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Just while people are thinking of, just one thing I think in generality, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but 2022, down here in this area, phase C and the water trails project, 2022, anticipate a lot of work between Scott Avenue and Southeast 14th Street for pretty much the whole year of 2022. I know Craig's got it broken down into phases here, but 2022, the north side of the river, 2023, the south side of the river, and then the water trails actually is 2023 and 2024 for the in-river, those improvements there. So I know, just trying to generalize it for everyone's 2022 north side, 2023 south side is really the starts of the main heart of the construction for the levees. As Craig mentioned, this will obviously require trail closures, detail of the trails, because as you know, the trail is along or sometimes on top of the levee. So. Any other questions? Pause for just a minute here.
I'm not sure how to raise my hands.
That's all right. Yep. John, go ahead. Yep.
Yes. On this slide here, where there's the number 4, and then if you go up, or if you go to the right a little bit and go, yeah, right around there, there's that part towards the bottom, looks like it's separate, kind of right there. Yeah, you're on the right-hand side of it. Like if you just, yeah, right. Well, to the left a little bit, like right where the arrow is pointing, like right at the tip of that arrow. What is that thing? Why is that separate there? Does that mean anything? You know what I mean? Just that thin line that looks like it's separate from the actual trail.
Craig, is that is that delineating a seepage control structure, or is that see how it's kind of, as John mentioned, it's kind of its own line there. Is that delineating a seepage trench? Do you know there, Craig?
Well, that's the levee. I mean, predominantly the Meredith Trail is Riverside, I think there. So yeah. Okay. So yep, that's what that's kind of depicting. And I think, some of the stuff that's going out to the balustrade wall there too is, we're armoring that section with riprap. So that's kind of why it's showing that really wide kind of area of improvement there.
Okay, so this line right here is the levee.
Yeah.
And then it is being raised, but it looks like most of the fill will be down to the balustrade, which is this. So then the trail is not on the levee, it's right next to the levee, or on the riverside right next to the levee. That's what that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Where was that picture? Let's see here, let me find. So, well, that's not.
It would.
Oh, then the levee would be like if there was a berm right over here.
Sure.
And so then if we raise that, then the trail would have to be raised, I assume, Craig, right? And then tapering down.
Yep. Yeah.
Thought we had a. Oh, here we go. This would be kind of the scenario, right? So we raise it, and then the trail would be elevated. And I know this is a different location, but I'm
sure
if this was here, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Jim? No.
How about now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. So that last, when you had that last elevation slide up, according to like the river gauge, the south side at East 6th, it says the levee height is like 36.9 or something at the East 6th Street river gauge. And if that's, I guess, can you go to the one between like East 6th and Scott?
This one right here.
Yeah, when you look at that on the left side, is that like the river gauge level? Clear to the left, the scale.
Craig, do you remember? Yeah, we have the we don't have chat.
It says, according to rivergauges.com, the National Weather Service, I think it says the top of the levee now is, of course, I guess I don't know where they're actually measuring that down through there.
Right here, we're showing the Des Moines from at the Des Moines datum. It's this is showing the existing levee at about 24. Now, when you go to the bridge, obviously it jumps way up up here. And then we need to fill here another, looks like a little over 2 feet, and then 4 feet when you get close to the bridge, because you see the levee kind of dips down. But
Right.
I'm thinking, I guess that's a good question.
Well,
I
I think
apologize.
I think on them river gauges and stuff, it mentions 24 feet is like where the city starts doing protocols for flood mitigation.
Closing
But
gates. Yeah.
I mean, as you look on down on the National Weather Service site of that gauge, there's like, it'll tell you the height of like Simon Estes Amphitheater and when certain road closures happen. But part of that, I'm sure it says that the levee height is 36 feet. So that's why I was questioning what those numbers on the left for that scale is. Is that the river gauge height or some surveying height that you guys have come up with?
The plan should be city data, not river gauge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there'd be a conversion to between the two.
Correct.
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, I apologize. We don't have that. Yeah.
Did you kind of understand my question though?
Yeah. You were asking, is there, how are these numbers in relation to the river gauge? Were they the same or they're not? And so they're not the same as the river gauge elevations that you see,
Right.
that are
Okay.
stages of the river. This is actually just the city created a survey datum, and
Right.
so we're not using
Okay.
the national. I mean, we can convert it, but there's a above sea level datum. This is actually
Right.
a city of Des Moines datum, is what these elevations are.
Because I guess when I first saw those numbers and I'm seeing the top of the levee is
Oh,
looks like it's going to be 29 feet when I'm used to looking at that site. Well, not so much in the last year, but in years past, I look at it quite often and I see the top of the levee's 37, and that just had me a little bit concerned, but I understand.
Yep. We did have to go through, and Jim brings up a good point. He talked about at certain elevations of the river, we have a flood mitigation plan where we so obviously, when there's say storm sewers that go underneath the levee to discharge, the flow that's the rainwater that's coming internal behind the levee. When the river gets so high, we have to close those we have gates that we close to seal up the sewers so the water doesn't come up, the flood water doesn't come up through the sewer and into the system internally. And then we built brand new pump stations, and one of them right between Scott Avenue and Southeast 6, right dead center between the two, a big new pump station, and we elevated pipes. So there's pipes that go over the flood protection system, and that pump station pumps the rainwater behind the levee system over into the river. And so that's what Jim's talking about. When we talk about stages, we've got to, at certain river elevations, we've got to close those gates so the water doesn't come up through the storm sewers that go underneath the levee or through the levee, essentially. And then even beyond that, we talked about the closures. If it's a high enough stage, we would have to start implementing the closures. So like the gates at the like the Simon Estes Amphitheater, for example, we would close those gates at certain river elevation stages before the river gets all the way up. So that's what Jim is talking about there when we our flood fighting plan. Okay. Okay, other questions? I apologize, I do
Is
see
that
someone with their
6 feet
hand
of-
up, but it listed as Craig, so.
Is that 6 feet of fill only on river left side, or is it on both sides?
So the
That's only at that at that one particular location. And I get why that's kind of like showing that extreme amount of fill is because we are realigning the levee to be a little bit more land side. So there, we're actually shifting it over. It would be on the opposite side, obviously, of Southeast 6, because on the side, Steve, where you got your hand right now, that's actually the section that's getting 2 feet of fill. But on the west side, it's a little bit heavier because we are doing a little bit of a realignment effort there. I think I might have stated this earlier, but normally within these, phase B and C projects, generally the most fill that we're going to see is around that 2 foot mark. And we could see as little fill as a 1/2 foot. So.
But Craig, what you're saying is because the levee is shifting slightly away from the river here.
On the other side, yeah.
The ground elevation's a little lower. So there's more fill. I know I'm on the wrong side of the bridge here, but yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. But this side right here, the levee's kind of staying the same. So it's going up 2 feet here about.
Yeah. So that plan sheet is showing river left, correct?
Yeah, the left descending bank.
Yep.
Or the north side of the river. Yes.
There you go. Yep. Okay. Very good. Okay, other questions? Again, if you think of any later, again, obviously, please check out our city website. Also, I've got Craig's information up here, the 283-4580 number. If you think of any later. Okay, I'll pause for just a minute for any other questions. Yep, Jim.
Steve, you mentioned, will this meeting, if a neighbor that didn't see this asks me about it, will this will be on the city's website somewhere?
Yep. We'll actually post it on this project and studies location, and a link to it. We'll download it. It'll take us a day or two, just because the size of the video, but yeah, Jim, is that something you'd like us to email to you, that link? Would that help?
Well, it probably wouldn't hurt.
Okay, but yeah, it'll be right. If you go to our engineering projects and studies page, you see there's a whole bunch of different projects here, the Des Moines Levee alterations. We will post the video, and there's other information on that website as well,
Right.
Kind of schedule and stuff like that, so they don't have to watch the video for some information, but yeah, we'll post it right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, you go to the city website, dsm.city, and then you can go to the engineering page, projects and studies, and that'll take you to a page like this, and then Des Moines Levee alterations. And you can see there's other projects there that you're probably all familiar with. Fluor Drive, one of them, Second Avenue corridor. Yep. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none or hearing none, I want to thank everyone for their time. We appreciate this. We've got a lot going on in their city. There's no question we're doing a lot of infrastructure improvements, to say the least. Bridges, stormwater, especially. And so we know construction is very impactful. It's I live on the east side in Des Moines, and I'm taking detour routes now as we speak too. But we're very excited about the improvements we're making, improving our streets, our flood mitigation, very importantly here, including this one, providing reducing our flood risk even more, in addition to going above and beyond the federal emergency management agency requirements. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Like I said, if you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and share this information. I see Craig's information up here as well. All right, hearing no other questions. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And again, thank you all so much for your time in attending.